Welcome to this week's episode of the Sports Curious podcast, where we bring you everything you never knew you wanted to know about the world of sports. And joining me today to talk about tennis's US Open is my favorite co host and my favorite brother and my only brother, Scott. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Amy. How are you today?
I am faring better than you today. Scott is here podcasting even with an injury. Give us a little idea of what happened to you, because I didn't know this was a thing.
We're playing injured today.
Yes.
I somehow bit my tongue and then it got infected somehow. So we are pushing through.
I can't imagine biting your tongue hard enough that you had to go get it glued together at the dentist, right?
Yes. Yes.
And you weren't in like some traumatic accident or something when you bit it? Like it was just a normal bite your tongue?
I not that I can recall any traumatic accidents. It's the weirdest freak injury of all time, perhaps.
Maybe perhaps. I mean, there's
But
probably been weirder ones, but the
it's not
fact that
going to
you're
stop
here
me
today
from
with
talking tennis.
that, it's not gonna stop you from talking about the world of sports. So we're gonna make this efficient since we want to save your, like, you're like a singer. We need to save your voice. We need to save your tongue.
Yes.
So let's start talking a little bit about the world of tennis and the final tournament of the Grand Slam season in tennis. The US Open follows the Australian Open, the French Open, and Wimbledon. And I find it very confusing that tennis and golf have a lot of the same names, the US Open, etc. So just to confirm, we are talking about tennis, not golf. The US Open is held in New York City. It's in Flushing Meadows, which is in the borough of Queens. It's a huge facility. And of course, it includes Arthur Ashe Stadium, Louis Armstrong Stadium. The tournament happens every year at the end of August, and it's been held for the past 141 years. It's exciting. This is the last hurrah in tennis.
This is it. And yeah, they didn't get very creative with their name compared to the Golf US Open. So that we could differentiate that for everyone.
Well, it happens. I guess why get creative if you don't have to?
Exactly. Exactly. And this is the only tennis major in America. So we finished off the year strong. And there's a very big American vibe to the crowd and the atmosphere. The fan experience is pretty wild. I know you've had some friends that have gone. Can you kind of speak about what they experienced?
So I made sure to talk to some folks who have gone before today's podcast recording, and they said, A, traffic is an issue. So just something to keep in mind. The facility is next to the New York Mets Stadium as well, and they are in town the entire time. So if you are going, be prepared for that. But I think the theme was, yes, it's definitely an American vibe. It's the biggest tennis stadium in the world, seating over 23,000 people. They pay the most money. They are the loudest. Unlike Wimbledon and some of the other tournaments you're seeing where there's a curfew, they play
Mhm.
past midnight. In 1975, they put in lights and they're like, you know what? Let's just keep going. So it's definitely a party atmosphere, a lot more fun. It's a respectful atmosphere that has a lot of rules, just like most tennis tournaments do. But obviously, there's a lot more fun. There's a cocktail of choice, which Wimbledon we drink champagne. Cocktail of choice is the honey deuce, which includes a mixture of vodka, lemonade, chambord, and a little bit of ice with 4 honeydew melon balls. It looks just like little tennis balls. So I know last year you made one of those for us I think on Instagram and TikTok.
I did. I got my Tom Cruise and cocktail on and jumped on Instagram and made a reel. It was delicious, obviously. So if you want to go check that out, I would absolutely advise you to. The melon balls are a lovely touch.
Well, let's just hope that you get off the antibiotics in time to enjoy one of these honeydews before the tournament's over. You have until
Luckily,
mid-September, till September
yeah.
10th.
Luckily, it's a very long tournament, so we should be ready to roll.
Hey, I will
Come,
see you between now and then. Maybe can we make some of these for a cocktail of choice?
let's do another video.
Let's do it. A sibling joint cocktail video, just what everyone's been looking for.
Absolutely.
So a couple of things that I want to note, what I like to understand when I go to a game or a different sport is what are some of the rules? What are some of the things I need to know? And there were two things that really stuck out to me that I thought were interesting as we go as a fan or just interesting about the world of tennis. I actually just watched the Will Smith movie King Richard about Venus and Serena Williams. Excellent movie. But there's a scene when Venus Williams plays in her first tournament and there's a holdout where the player leaves the court for a bathroom break to ice her out essentially. And players are only allowed one bathroom break per match, and it can be 3 minutes long, no longer. So, interesting on the ones that are like 11 hours long or whatever the longest tennis match has been. Hopefully there's some exceptions to that, but they're also probably dehydrated.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much a strategic move. The bathroom break, they're not necessarily actually using the bathroom. So that's why they had to cut it down on the time. You had someone in there for 10 minutes for no reason, just freezing their opponent out. It's it causes a lot of frustration and anger with the crowd and the opposing player.
And it sounds like this is the crowd that you do not want to piss off. They'll be throwing melon balls at you when you come back
Yeah.
on.
At 2 a.m.
Um,
on a Saturday night, you don't want you don't want the crowd turning on you. Absolutely not.
no, that is not the crowd I would like.
No.
And the other thing, oh, go ahead. Everything else? I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
Sorry, I cut you off there. Speaking of melon balls, let's talk about the tennis balls being used in the tournament. They're using the same ball for both men and women, and I did not know that they didn't use the same ball for men and women. But the US Open was the only one to feature two different sets of balls for the men and women. And now they're back to that. Now they're using the same one starting in 2023 because the women hated it.
Yeah, it's certainly never something you think about when you're watching that there's two different balls between the men and women. And last year, the quality of the ball was objectively awful based on all the women's feedback. And when number one Iga Swiatek, if I'm pronouncing that correctly,
I think it's
she
Swiatek,
was
but yes.
she was the one that really raised concern. And when you win the tournament and you raise concern about the balls, I think you have a little more power than normal. So not to worry, they're the same this year.
Okay, noted. Like I said, that was something I've never even thought of because you think about
Hmm.
golf, you move the tee location, but the ball is the same. So
Yes,
really, here you go, earth shattering.
yes.
Now, as we dive into some of the players to watch, did you know that players don't have to be world ranked to play in the US Open?
I know it's a complicated system. I didn't know exactly how highly you had to be ranked. I know there's a like a qualifier tournament.
Absolutely. So they have what they call Fan Week, which is when fans can come in and watch for free, but that's basically a qualifying tournament. So 104 of the 128 players get in directly with their world ranking. There are 16 spots reserved for qualifiers, which are these people who obviously qualify during the qualifying tournament. And then 8 spots are reserved for wild cards, who we will talk about, especially when we look at the women to watch in this tournament. So let's actually start with the women. There are a lot of title contenders, including obviously world number one, Iga Swiatek. And then there's American Coco Gauff, who has kind of been killing it a little bit this season. Talk to me about a little bit about Coco.
Coco's kind of, I mean, she's still only 19, although I think she broke onto the scene at 15. So it seems like she's a veteran at this point. And she's kind of had a career resurgence since she went out early in Wimbledon. And she's won 2 tournaments since then, Cincinnati and DC. And she kind of credited on becoming CPR certified after Wimbledon. She felt like she needed to do something different. So she went out and got CPR certified.
And she's been killing the court ever since.
Yeah, and there's been a few incidents in the crowd where she's offered to go help out a guest or someone watching the match in peril. She's offered to go jump in and help out.
Well, I mean, karma is clearly working well for her that
Working
she
well.
decided to pay it forward.
Yeah, also I'd like to point out that Jess Pagula, who's from New York, from Buffalo, her mother was in cardiac arrest and her life was saved by CPR from her sister. So I think it's kind of maybe a warning sign we should all, take the time and go get CPR certified.
It's super easy. I went and did, we did infant CPR when the tiny human was born. That is
Hmm.
terrifying, first of all.
Yeah.
But yes, you can go get CPR certified. It's super easy now. I mean, if anything, watch a YouTube video. I know that's not perfect, and I'm not
Hmm.
encouraging you to not follow the rules, but just know what's going on, right? And for the people you love who might need something. Um, yeah, but she, if I remember correctly, Coco promoted getting CPR certified, and so it's kind of really helped that resurgence of being CPR certified as well. So
Absolutely. It's
we're
trendy
talking
now.
about it here.
Yes. Very trendy.
We're just trending. I mean, so we've got Ego, we have Coco. Serena Williams is out because she just had her second baby. But her sister, Venus Williams, is one of those ones who's receiving that wild card at the age of 43. So she will be there playing in the first round starting on August 28th.
Yeah, she's just refusing to give up. She said, I think she wants to play till she's 50. She said, as
Good
long as
for
she's
her.
healthy, she's going to keep going out there and trying. I mean, she had a few wins, I think, in Cincinnati. So you never know. I mean, her experience and her determination kind of sets her apart from some of the younger generation. So
Absolutely.
if she can advance, the crowd's going to love it.
Yes. Now, she, if I remember correctly, also played at Wimbledon, didn't she? Or was it the French Open? I think it was Wimbledon. I feel like she
I
set a
believe
record for like the most Wimbledon appearances.
yes, yeah, it was Wimbledon.
I think it's cool. Did you know that in 2001 she and Serena became the first sisters to meet in a Grand Slam final?
I did not know that. That's
I saw that and
that's
I thought that
wild
was
to think about.
interesting. But who do you think won that one?
I'm gonna say Venus did.
She did.
I
She
think
did.
Venus had a dominant run, and then Serena kind of caught up to her, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Have you watched that movie King Richard?
I have not, unfortunately. I'm not a big movie person at this juncture of life. I'm
Well,
too busy watching random sports to
you might be when you're laid up with not being able to go out with your antibiotic, but
watch.
I
True.
watched it on the airplane on one of our trips this summer,
Mhm.
and it was actually really good. So I highly recommend it if you want a little insight into the world of tennis. Before we dive into talking about the men to watch for, we have Caroline Wozniak, who's back. So she played quite a while ago, has made a comeback after a break for children, etc. And she's done really well in Montreal, Cincinnati, and she's also been given a wild card.
Yeah, so yeah, it's been quite a comeback. I think she also had arthritis as well, really bad. So a few years off to have children and heal up. She was doing a lot of commentating on the tennis channel. So she never really left the game, but it's kind of cool to see her come back. This resurgence of like mothers competing. We had Serena come back for a while. There's multiple mothers playing in this tournament. So it's kind of just a cool situation to have somebody come back after all that.
It's a lot, and it's a lot to be a mom, let alone to be a professional athlete mom.
Yes.
And I obviously I cannot be compared to that because there is no professional athlete in my career, but it's great to see it, and it's great to see that things are
Mhm.
possible. Whether that's
Absolutely.
for a younger generation, whether that's for someone who's just battling something, it's like you can come back and there's still an option for that. Um, Speaking of kind of comebacks, I guess it's not really a comeback, but we haven't seen him in New York in a while. But on the men's side, Novak Djokovic will be playing this year because he missed last year because he did not get the COVID vaccine. And since we implemented the emergency measures around COVID were terminated in May, he can come into the country without a vaccination. So we can see him maybe win his elusive 24th Grand Slam.
Yeah, it's good to have him back. I think it felt kind of empty without him, with one of the biggest names in tennis. So it's exciting to have him back. He's got quite a rivalry going on with the much younger Carlos Alcaraz. They've been playing some epic matchups. I don't know if you recall Wimbledon. There was a lot of back and forth. So it's good to have him back. It definitely raises the stakes for all the men in the tournament.
Well, it's interesting to see this. I feel like we've had this resurgence, or we have these big names coming up through the
Hmm.
women's side, and the men's side's been a little quieter. Carlos has sort of been the dominant feature from the up and coming, and so I feel like we have these big names that are retiring, but we don't really have a lot of young talent that you're slowly learning from. Is it Chris Eubanks?
Eubanks, yeah, he had a career resurgence at in Wimbledon, where he's never really even won a tournament, and then he went on this unbelievable run for 2 weeks, and that's really raised his profile.
Which is great. I love to see it. I love to see that these players who are able to gain traction and make it in the spotlight, because I think the sport needs
Hmm.
those stories. That we need those. We need that excitement, not just for you and I to talk about, but it gets fans into it, right? I think that is the coolest thing is now that we're losing names that people are familiar with, how do we continue to paint the picture and serve up these other players who are great, young, and talented that are coming up through the system?
Yeah, for what was it, 20 years? It was either Federer, Nadal, or Djokovic, and that was about it. So maybe we'll have some younger names. Alcaraz, I know Yannick Sinner. He's got the Carota boys. I
Oh,
think
yes,
we've
yes,
covered
yes, the
this
Croto
before.
Boys.
He's
If you don't know
probably
what
outside of those top two. He's probably maybe the one that actually has a chance to upset someone.
okay.
And he's
And if
got
you
the
wanna I was gonna say, if you wanna see a video on it, there's one on our TikTok about, his fans basically dress like carrots in the stands.
in the stands. Yes, so that's something to keep your eye on for the tournament.
Do you
Something
think carrot costumes make the dress code?
they must. I don't know if you have to smuggle those in somehow, or if you can come fully carroted up. We'll have to get some inside sources on that.
We'll have to keep an eye on that. So one of the things I want to touch on before we log off from this conversation is the prize money. So I learned in my research for this that tennis was actually the first sport, and the US Open was the first Grand Slam to offer equal prize money to men and women.
I mean, that's incredibly progressive, right? I think that's kind of the American way to be on the forefront of paying everyone, because some of the other tournaments, are happening in European countries where it's not necessarily a priority.
Well, and this was it said it started in 1973 when Billie Jean King threatened to boycott the event. So you look at what she's done for the
Hmm.
sport, but you think 1973 they were offering equal prize money, which I think is fantastic. And this year it's a record prize money of $65 million. The champions will each earn $3 million, but even the person who loses in the first round will earn $81,000. So that's not terrible.
It's not a bad payday for a few hours, so it's great to see that the purses are rising each year as well. It's not just staying flat. They're doing their best to increase these payouts.
And I was looking at the numbers across the Grand Slam tournaments. So majors are in Grand Slam tournaments. If you're not familiar with tennis and golf, very similar language. They're basically the four big tournaments of the year. For tennis, that's Wimbledon, the French Open, Australian Open, and obviously the U.S. Open. But for comparison's sake, they're giving away 65 million in prize money. Wimbledon was 56.6 million. So there's quite a big discrepancy between that top tier. So it's pretty neat to see, like you said, this money going back to the players who
Hmm.
are really have put in their blood, sweat, and tears, and probably their family's life savings to make it here.
Yeah, tennis might be the hardest road to climb if you're not necessarily ranked in the top 10. It's a lot of travel. It's very expensive. If you haven't watched Breakpoint on Netflix, I think that would really give you an insight just into how challenging life as a tennis player really is.
I haven't seen that one. I'll have to watch that one. Okay,
So
adding it to
add
my
that to your
list.
list since you've already watched King Richard.
Yep, add that to the list along with a couple other good ones that are out right now. So, anything you want to leave us with before we sign off on the U.S. Open?
I saw a random stat. I hope it's true that Venus Williams had already won 12 majors before Carlos Alcaraz was even born.
That
So I
makes
thought
sense.
so I thought I would share that.
Because let's see, she's 43. He's what, like 23?
He may have just turned 21.
Oh, 21. Okay, so
Yeah,
yeah,
so
I
he's
mean that makes sense.
so thought that
Wow.
was interesting just to show the discrepancy on how long Venus is the ageless wonder, just sticking around, just playing.
It's incredible. I love to see it. Well, may she keep going so we have something really exciting to talk about. For more on the US Open, what's happening, those updates. We are obviously here every Monday and Friday with a shorter version of the podcast, usually 2 to 3 minutes, giving you a heads up on what's happening in the world of sports. And then we have a weekly newsletter that goes out on Wednesday in your email box. So we will keep you posted on all the things. And we, of course, besides this podcast, believe in short and sweet. So there are what you need to get your day started. So thank you, Scott, for being here with me. Thanks for talking US Open.
Thank you.